The applications process involves a few different stages, from admissions criteria to choosing a degree, entry tariff, lesson statement, academic reference. I'm going to concentrate mainly on choosing a degree because that's probably where I can add a bit more to what you've already been told about applying for a degree at university. A lot of the other stuff will be covered in various school talks and on the UCAS website. Just briefly though, there are a few deadlines that you should be aware of. 1st of September is when UCAS opens for 2016 applications. I do advise you to start applying as early as possible. Universities do start allocating places quite early, so you get your applications in as and when you can. So that doesn't mean you should rush through, you should give it lots of thought, and that's what we're going to emphasise throughout. You should really give a lot of thought to everything you're doing in every stage of the applications process. And the final deadline is the 15th of January. Any applications received after this are considered late, and universities do not have to consider them if they want to. That's very important if you are hoping to apply to a very competitive university where places could be allocated at an 8-to-1 ratio, for example. 8 to you do have 5 choices that you can make for universities, and again, I do advise you to try and choose similar subjects on your form. So you can apply for multiple subjects at a single university, which is something I'll come on to given the variation of politics streams that are available out there. And finally, just to mention quickly, there's if you do not make your offer, there's the opportunity to go into clearing, to choose another university, or if you exceed your expectations or predicted grades, there's an opportunity to go through adjustment and go to a better university than you initially applied for. So, what I'm going to talk about mainly is choosing the degree. Because this is actually a fairly complex process. There's no standard politics curriculum at university level. There's no such thing really as a standard politics degree. What is delivered at the University of Manchester is not the same as what's delivered at UCL, or will be delivered at UCL, or is not the same as delivered at Essex. You can expect the same broad contours of the degree because there's something called QAA guidelines, which means that we all have to reach certain standards, but the actual module selection will vary quite a lot depending on the research interests of the staff. So you need to think a lot about what, in fact, you are interested in studying. And this can vary. We get people who arrive at King's and they're particularly interested in studying electoral politics, or they might be particularly interested in studying foreign policy analysis, or public administration, or international political economy. We get a lot of people at King's who are interested particularly in critical approaches to international political economy, primarily because we have a research strength in that. But it's not straightforward that those courses will be offered at every single university. So you really need to sit down and think about what it is about politics that you're interested in. At this stage, you may not have a clear idea of what it is exactly, but you might have an idea of where you want to go and what job you have in mind post degree. If you wanted to work in civil service, for example, you might think that it would be useful to take a degree which has quite a strong public administration or public policy offering in terms of modules. But also you have to think about what it is that you're interested in too, not just what is going to be the most useful in terms of getting a job. Ultimately, a degree has to keep you focused and keep you interested for 3 years, 4 years in some cases. So you do have to take something that you're interested in. You should also think about whether or not you want to study just politics, or the wide range of politics with degrees that you're going to see when you look through various prospectus out there. At King's, for example, we offer, there's a standard BA Politics and a BSc Politics, of which I can say more about later. We offer a BA in European Politics, but we also offer various degrees in European Studies with a French pathway, or a German pathway, or a Spanish pathway. And many of the universities will also offer such degrees: politics with history, politics with politics with German. So you need to consider whether or not you actually want to solely study politics, whether that's going to be your entire focus for the next 3 years, or whether you want to add something else into that, whether you want to take a degree that is a little bit more interdisciplinary. The politics with language degrees do seem to be becoming a little bit more popular now, because speaking another language is always advantageous, and everyone is looking for that line on the CV that makes them stand out a little bit. And also, we get a lot of students who come to King's who study languages at A level, and they don't want to use, they don't want to lose that facility they have with languages. So there's a number of things that you might want to consider when you're looking to apply for a degree. The first is the approach taken to studying politics. This is, I think this is incredibly important when you're looking around different departments. It might not seem apparent at first, but once you start looking at the kind of research that staff do, the kind of profile that the university has, you can get a feel for the kind of approach that they're going to adopt to teaching. Just to give you an example, I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Essex. It's the leading research university in the country, in fact, going by the latest rep results. But it has a very particular approach to politics. It's even when I was there in the late 1990s, they were very much focused on ensuring that their undergraduate students left with a real strength in quantitative methods. And that quantitative methods focus, it ran throughout, so you would be expected to have an idea of what it meant to use quantitative methods, how to interpret them, and how to read research that was based on them. And that ran through all the courses. So knowing that you had that background meant that the people who were putting their courses together, the other lecturers, they could prescribe certain readings because they knew you had that particular background. Other universities will not take that approach. Up until 2012, I was at the University of Sussex, which didn't really emphasise that sort of approach to politics. At Sussex, the politics department emphasises more of a European regional studies focus, very much qualitative in its approach, and so leaves aside that quantitative political science element. Not entirely, of course, but certainly to some degree, and everyone has a duty to ensure you're familiar with the range of approaches that can be taken in a discipline, but the depth in which they go into those is going to vary. So you should be aware of what you're going into when you go to each department. The second thing is the substantive focus of modules. This is where I urge you to really research university websites, not just look at the outline of the degree or the introduction to the degree. Actually start clicking on the individual modules. These should be available online. And see what you would be doing in the first year of your degree, in the second year, and the third year. Because once again, these vary quite a lot. A lot of people, they might take up a politics degree, particularly in the UK, expecting to do quite a lot on British politics. But that isn't necessarily a given. Again, at King's, we don't really have a particular focus on British politics. Throughout the university, I think we offer at undergraduate level 1, perhaps 2 modules on British politics. We've got a much greater focus, firstly on European politics, and secondly on more thematic issues of the way politics and the economy interact. So you do need to take a bit more of a close look. This is partly because you can start thinking about how you want your degree to play out for you over the 3 years that you're going to be there. You will be given substantial choice to shape your own degree, pretty much wherever you go. You might have a quite highly structured first year course where you'll be expected to take certain foundational courses. This gives you the knowledge that most universities will think you have to know in order to move on from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. But slowly you'll be given ever more control over your own programme, up to the final year where, again, most universities will give you almost complete control to choose your modules. This is to put learning into your hands. By that point you should have an idea of what you want to study. You should have all the foundational knowledge that you need to make those informed decisions. You can start thinking about what you want to do. Postgraduate, whether that's going to do an MA or move into the world of work. And thinking again about the kind of substantive modules you can take, these do vary quite a lot. Again, this is linked to the approach of various departments. I work in the Department of European and International Studies at King's. Our particular ethos, our approach to teaching politics, is to ground politics in country level debates. So we like our students, we expect our students to not just become experts about, for example, the politics of energy. We want them to know what the politics of energy means in Germany, for example, or in Slovakia, or in Russia, because of course this varies. You can understand various concepts of the broad sweep of the subject of politics of energy, but it is our belief that grounded knowledge is what should give you an advantage. But not every department takes that approach. Some departments do emphasise the more thematic module, so they will take a broader sweep of political studies. So they'll have modules on perhaps environmental politics, politics in the international economy, and so forth. And as mentioned, some departments do have particular regional focus. Increasingly, we see students who are applying to universities very much interested in politics of emerging nations, of the BRIC countries. That's becoming much more important. But not every university has particular strengths in those subjects. So if you are interested in the politics of China, for example, that's not something that at King's we have particular strength in. So you perhaps want to look at somewhere else for that. So it's really about making sure that what's on offer is what you want. And I just want to really emphasise this because it can, when we do get applications coming through, it's quite evident sometimes that people want to go to the university and they haven't quite done the full research into what they're going to be studying there. So we get a lot of people who want to study at King's. It's a great university, etc. Nice location. But they come, we have a degree in European politics and they enroll on it, and then we get asked questions at the end of the first year, can I do a module on China or India? And you say, well, no, you've enrolled on a European politics degree. You should perhaps have looked at that before applying. And that's when problems start, of course, because it means that students perhaps want to transfer, they want to withdraw from the university, and that becomes costly for the student. It's not good for the university either. So we want to make sure that your decisions are you're making fully informed decisions right from the start, that you know exactly what you're getting when you come to a university. Another thing that you might want to consider is related to this idea of the scope for exploring related disciplines. Now, I don't exactly know what year are you in your A levels. Are you in the first or second year? First. Okay. So you're very much unlikely to have a very precise idea of what you want to do now. No, you might be very focused. I certainly didn't. So you might be looking around thinking politics it looks attractive, but you might also want to explore other disciplines while you're at university. Related disciplines, of course, economics, sociology, maybe history. Certain degrees will allow you to do this, others will not. Others will will try to ensure that you pick modules from within the set menu that is available from their department. You should also think about whether or not you really, how much you want to explore these other disciplines, and if it's quite extensive, then you may need to think about whether you want to do a politics degree at all. I had an inquiry about 3 weeks ago from someone who wanted to be applying for a European politics degree, who asked if they would be able to study macroeconomics, microeconomics, and econometrics. To which I just replied, maybe you should apply for an economics degree, because quite frankly, they're not politics subjects. So if you're really thinking about other courses quite deeply, perhaps you need to consider whether or not politics is really for you. But then again, you should see if there's scope for exploring other degrees. Again, the degree that I was convening up until this year, we allowed students to take, I think it was 30 credits, 2 semesters worth of modules each year from outside the department, as long as it was in a vaguely related subject such as philosophy or economics, something like that. The fifth thing is who will teach you. You should take a look at the department website, see who's going to be on staff. A lot of people apply to universities because they've seen certain professors or lecturers in the media or what have you, and they're attracted to that particular university because they're going to be taught by them. So it's good to see which courses those people teach, whether or not they're going to fit with the kind of degree you're going to be doing, and just to ensure that you're comfortable with the level of teaching that you're going to get there, and make sure that you don't leave disappointed because you couldn't sit on a certain person's course. The sixth thing is the approach to teaching. Most teaching does take place in a rather standard format at university. It's diversifying a little bit, but most of it is still done through lectures and seminars. This does vary, of course, depending on the size of particular modules and the size of particular degree programs. Very popular degree programs where you do have perhaps 160, 200 undergraduates, and usually 8 or 9 applicants for each place. You're going to find that there's going to be a lot more lectures in rooms like this, actually bigger than this, and then you will be taught perhaps 1 hour in the lecture and 1 hour in the seminar, which you'll get more person-to-person contact. In smaller programs, you'll probably find that teaching is arranged much more around smaller seminar groups, which are much more participatory. This is the preferred way of teaching for most of us. We much prefer to be able to sit and talk to you about stuff that we're teaching, rather than just lecture you about it. But in some courses, particularly very popular courses, that's not always possible. Usually you'll find that as you progress through your degree, your class sizes reduce. So in the first year with the introductory courses, which everyone takes those, you'll probably spend more time doing lectures than you would in the second and third year. By the time you get to the third year of your degree, it's likely that you'll be taking much smaller courses, seminar group days, very participatory. That's one more thing I should emphasise as well. Just the nature of teaching politics, as you might expect, it's centred around debate. It's centred around talking to one another, debating with your lecturer. It's one of those subjects where there is no right or wrong answer to nearly every question. There's just poorly argued cases or well argued cases, and that's the kind of thing that you should be prepared to get involved in. It's you'll find that you get more out of your degree if you're prepared for that, and you'll find that classes are much more fun. And finally, the study abroad option. If this is important to you, this is an extra arm of research that you should be doing when you look at your degree. Again, you might not have thought too deeply about this at the minute, but many students do want to spend a semester or a year in another country, just experiencing education in the US or Singapore, the Netherlands, depending on the partnership agreements that universities have. Now, the study abroad option is not necessarily available for every politics degree, and if this is important to you, then in advance find out whether or not the option is available, but also who your department or who the departments you're applying to have partnership agreements with. Because it's not simply a case of you want to study abroad, therefore the university will set up an exchange with Berkeley in the US. You have to have partnership agreements in place. For example, on the degree that I was convening, we have partnership agreements with 4 universities: University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, National University of Singapore, Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and Sciences Po Paris. So our students on the European politics degree can only go to those 4 universities on the option abroad. Again, I mention this simply because this year I had a student who was very insistent that they wanted to go to Australia for study abroad, and came to see me about 6 or 7 times with a very good case of why they should be allowed to go to Australia. But the university doesn't set up exchange agreements for one person, so it's not something we could accommodate, actually. So do that research before you go ahead. So yeah, finally, before I just move on to give you an idea of the kind of degrees that we have available. Just to reiterate, do your research into each department, find out what the strengths are of that department, and also try to consider universities that you may not necessarily have heard of, because they're not particularly big names or what have you, because they do have some concentrations of particular research strength around the country. For example, Aberystwyth University is a brilliant university for international relations, perhaps the leading university in the country. Manchester and Nottingham University, particularly good at the minute for British politics, largely because they hold the British election study. So you find these different types of strength in different universities. So the range of programmes that you can do, this is just the programmes that are offered at King's, which is why I'm trying to get across to you just how diverse studying politics can be. History is listed on here as well. It does have some politics component, but of course it's mainly political history. But beyond the history degree, the others are broadly politics in nature. Now of course we have the standard BA, BSc politics, the BSc is listed there. But there's actually a difference between that. The BSc in politics will have a very heavy quantitative methods component, and BA in politics will not. So again, that's that subtle difference that you can see. The BA, BSc in political economy has a lot more economics involved in it, though it's not strictly an economics degree, it's very much about the intersection between politics and economics. And as you move down, you can see we have the European politics degree, which is, as you might imagine, politics with a very European focus, and the various European studies degrees, which they're a bit more interdisciplinary than the standard politics degree. I'd say around 75% of the content is political science, political studies in nature. There's some modern languages and also some history, culture in that too. And of course, as it's King's College, we are pretty much well renowned for our Department of War Studies, which is study of conflict and security. That, of course, should be, I should note, is different from international relations, which is the final degree on this table. And this, again, this is one of those subtle differences that you should be aware of. You have to be alive to, I suppose, when you're making your choices. The War Studies degree is very much focused on, as you might imagine, the study of conflict. International relations also includes the study of conflict, but it's more diverse than that. You would also be studying human rights and international economics too, and development, for example. So it's a bit more, it's more diverse than War Studies, though both degrees are held, they are convened by the Department of War Studies. So these subtle differences, or seemingly subtle differences, can be extremely important. There are, of course, other considerations that you might want to take into account in applying for your degree. The first is where do you want to live for 3 years? That's quite a general one, I suppose. It's some people want to live in a big city. Some people want to get away from the big cities. Some people want to attend a campus-based university where essentially the university becomes a small town for you. Others, like those city-based universities where the campus is actually dotted around the city a little bit, as you find more student universities. Also think about what else is offered by your location. I suppose this kind of event is a good example of that. If you're thinking of attending a London university, then there are a lot of advantages when you're studying politics in that. London is, of course, the centre of politics in the UK. And there's just so much going on around Westminster. Various think tanks, such as Demos, who spoke today, will be holding events constantly throughout the year, which of course you can attend. So there's an opportunity to start making the most of your time at university, going beyond your degree, to see what you can then move into afterwards. Also, you should have a look to see what your department does with their students. This is all part of building a CV and things like that, doing all those things beyond simply getting your degree, which make you look more attractive when you hit the job market. So does the university or the department actually support student initiatives? We're seeing this increasingly, that students are so proactive now, organising events for themselves, not just attending them. At King's, we have something called the European Week, which is organised by the European Society, completely organised by students. They have a whole week of guest speakers coming in to debate and host events. Staff really are there to support students as much as possible, usually just by chairing events. But what the students do achieve in that week is incredible. They have European commissioners come and speak, ex-prime ministers coming from all over Europe to speak on the initiative of students themselves. So those sort of events, how much will the department of the university support you if you show initiative is really important, I think. So there's a few other things that I do need to go through, but well, I'll go through quite quickly because then you can find out most of this information on various websites. Entry tariffs and admissions criteria. These are going to vary obviously by institution. At King's, the entry tariffs vary from AAA to ABB. Again, it is very much variable by university. From my experience, actually, I know the entry tariffs are very important, and universities set these for a reason. the quality of education you will get doesn't necessarily reflect in the entry tariff, I don't think. You could study a very, very good politics degree in which the entry tariff is ABB. In fact, many of the best departments in the country have entry tariffs that are set at ABB. So I wouldn't necessarily think that it's a mark of quality that a degree has a AAA entry tariff. It could simply reflect competition, for example, where there's 8 or 9 students applying for every one place, then the entry tariff automatically goes up to AAA, simply because you need some way to whittle down the numbers that you have to deal with. So don't necessarily think you need to focus on those programs which are AAA. Now, the actual admissions office itself, now I said I worked as admissions tutor twice. The role of admissions tutor is diminishing over the years. Admissions is becoming much more centralised within university management and bureaucracy. So as an admissions tutor, most of my work was largely doing events like these, and also looking at borderline cases, to those cases in which a student might make the entry criteria, also those students that we might reject due to competition, which is another thing that you are going to find quite a lot of when you apply for very competitive programs, that you may meet all of the entry criteria in terms of your predicted grades, but you could find your application rejected simply due to the level of competition. And that's where admissions tutors become involved, because those applications will be forwarded on to us, and we will have to adjudicate based on your application. This is where your personal statement becomes very important. So what will the central administration look at? Because it will be central administration who deals with these, with your application in the first instance largely. At King's, this is called CASA. I forget what it actually stands for. So they'll look at your predicted A-level grades at courses, and the number one thing that they'll look at. Make sure you meet the basic entry requirements. They'll also look at your level of English. You get a lot of applications from overseas, so we need to make sure that students are able to study in English. They may look at your GCSE grades if you are a borderline case, or if competition is particularly heavy. But that's not necessarily a given. The next things are much more important: understanding the subject and commitment to the subject. And these are the things that come through in your personal statement. So they want to be able to see that you know what you're getting into, that you know what studying politics involves, and that you know what the programs that you've applied for involve. This is why I was emphasising a lot when I was talking about choosing a degree, that you research it, so you can show that you know what you're going to do, what you're going to get yourself into for 3 years. Fifthly, they may look for transferable skills, looking to see whether or not you're particularly participatory, what else you may be able to offer to university life, whether you're going to be a vibrant organiser of events and so on. You may find that a university will choose to interview you before making an offer. That's becoming very rare now. Certainly at King's, we don't interview anyone anymore before making an offer. I think last year we interviewed one person in very particular circumstances. The circumstances behind that. The interview is very much associated with Oxford and Cambridge now. So your personal statement, I'll just talk about this fairly briefly because I know we've run out of time. I'm sure you have some questions. The personal statement is incredibly important now because of the intense competition that there is for places on many degrees, particularly the most popular universities, the most popular programs. This is a real opportunity for you to convey not just what you've achieved in your studies, but who you are and what your commitment is to politics. And you see, we read a lot of personal statements. Some very good, some very bad. Often they border on the generic. But those ones that really stand out are those that demonstrate they know what studying politics involves, that they've given some thought to it, that they've thought about, actually it's not just whether or not they're interested in the news and things like that, but what studying politics means, whether or not they think it's the study of the state, or the study of power, or the study of who gets what, how, where and when. Now, they've actually thought about these things. And this is a good place to do that. Now, in your personal statement, if you're very clear on what you want to do, you should make it clear that you're very focused on studying politics. Try to ensure that you don't look like you're uncertain about the subject you're getting into. This again goes into the route of universities wanting to bring in applicants who they think are not just going to turn up on enrolment day, but also stay the course, stay at the university for 3 years. If you get students who has perhaps applied for a politics degree and maybe a law degree, maybe dentistry, it does happen sometimes, then that student looks a bit uncertain, and if you're adjudicating between them and another applicant who shows a lot more commitment to studying politics and a lot more understanding of politics in your university, then as an admissions tutor you're going to side with the person who looks like they're going to stay rather than the person who looks like a candidate for withdrawal after 3 months, a year, something like that. So do put a lot of effort into your personal statement, but also try and maintain some character in it as well. This is about the only opportunity that the admissions tutors and the admissions staff will have to find out what you're really like as a person. The entire UCAS form is really just ticking boxes, filling in data. This is the only opportunity that you're going to have to learn to convey who you are, what you're going to offer to the university. And do mention your other activities, particularly if you're doing anything that looks vaguely related to politics and looks like you're engaged in politics. A lot of people blog now, and a lot of people do volunteer work. So do make sure that these things come through on your personal statement to show your engagement. And finally, the last piece of advice I give on this is read it over and over and over and over again, and get someone else to read it too, because reading your own work is actually quite difficult. It's difficult to spot your own mistakes. So get someone else to read it too. Even small spelling mistakes can stand out when you're reading applications. This is very important. This is an important part of your life, so it's worth going into making sure that everything has been checked and double checked. So take your time over it. If you need to write it, leave it alone for a week or two and then go back to it, make sure it still sounds good. Make sure you've ironed out all the things. So the final thing is the academic reference. I'll just talk briefly about this, but make sure that you do actually talk to your referee before you ask for a reference, so that they know everything about you. They know what you do, they know why you're interested in politics. A supportive reference can make a huge difference when you're looking at borderline cases and things like that. Or if, for example, admissions staff receive a reference that is 2 lines long, which I have seen. We've seen references that just say the student is competent and able, and therefore they may say, they will come back to it and say the reference is unsupportive. So they expect references to be a bit more effusive. Your teachers are going to be able to be effusive, and they need to know stuff about you. hopefully stuff beyond your grade. It's a little bit different for you than it is for me in terms of getting references from a teacher, because your teacher will taught you for a year or two, they'll know about a lot about you anyway from being in class. Well, there's the student who I taught last year who applied for, he wanted to withdraw and apply for another degree and asked me to be his UCAS reference as I was a personal tutor. We hadn't turned up to any personal tutor meetings all year. I didn't teach him, so there was literally nothing I could write about him other than his name and his grades. I couldn't say this person is very involved, he does X, Y, Z. I knew nothing of him. In fact, I don't think I could even picture him. Make sure that your teacher knows who you are. Hopefully they do after 2 years or so. But make sure they know about you too. Otherwise, it gets very difficult. There's a lot of focus on you to do, to make sure that this process runs well for you. Your teacher shouldn't really have to run around after you asking for information. Just provide it all. Make their life very easy. But also, teachers have a duty to be honest with you as well, and the university that you're applying to. So they will generally they're going to write positive evaluations about you, and they're going to, I'm sure. But they have to be honest with you. If they don't think you're capable of going to a particular university, then they will say so. Or if, for example, your attendance has been very poor, then it's highly likely that they're going to say so in the references. Just to sum up, get your application in early. Say it over and over again. Make sure you know which course you're getting into. Choose a course that's right for you. Research it thoroughly. Email the course conveners or the admissions tutors and ask them for more information. They're usually very friendly, and if they're not friendly, they're duty bound to reply to you anyway. So just do that. Make sure that you show that you've researched your university in your personal statement. You can drop subtle hints that you understand that. For example, Aberystwyth has this strength in international relations, and that's why you're applying there. And also choose a university that's right for you. Okay, I think I should stop there because we're running to time.